Broncos country, welcome back to another video here on the Parker Love Sports YouTube channel. Thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to spend them here with me on the channel. Before we get things started, I just want to ask that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as the support is greatly appreciated. If you could help me by leaving a like, that helps the video get pushed out to more people. If you could subscribe to the channel, that means the absolute world to me, as we have recently just passed 500 subscribers. And if you could continue to help me have the channel grow, that would mean the absolute world to me, as I'm trying to do this as a career one day, as well as just watch the video all the way through, as it really does help support the channel more than you know. As well as I just want to thank every single person for their support. And let's go ahead and let's get into this mock draft. In the scenario that the Denver Broncos have to trade down from the 12th overall pick, in the scenario that we don't trade up for one of the top 4 quarterbacks, or none of the top 4 quarterbacks are available at the 12th overall pick, which is seemingly more and more likely each day. Those guys, of course, being Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and J.J. McCarthy. Now, as many of you know, J.J. McCarthy is my ideal pick for the Broncos. If you want to know why, I've released a couple videos. You can go look at my last mock draft where the Broncos trade up to grab J.J. McCarthy, or you can go look at the video that I released of the quarterbacks that I would personally want the Denver Broncos to draft in the 2024 NFL Draft, where I go even deeper into why and which quarterbacks that I would prefer and that I would want the Denver Broncos to draft. But McCarthy is my ideal guy. I just want to throw that out there. But this mock draft is completely on the scenario that all 4 of those top guys are gone and we need to trade down for one of the next quarterbacks, because quite frankly, from all the rumors, Bo Nix is looking like a late first, early second round pick. Michael Penix is looking like a second round guy. So I'm going to do a mock draft in that scenario that the Denver Broncos trade down. My next mock draft will most likely be in the scenario that the Broncos stick at pick 12 and pick the best available player at that spot. It's going to be tough, but we're going to have to roll with it. I want to try and give a mock draft of every scenario so that Broncos fans are prepared for when the draft gets here next month. Now, before we get into this video, as always, I just want to ask that you, first things first, I just want to remind you that Jesus is King, and I just pray that you give your life to him, as he's got a plan and a purpose for you. And I just truly hope that you accept Jesus with your whole heart and believe that he died on the cross for your sins. And if you truly believe that, then you'll go to heaven. It's that simple and it's that easy. It's not through how many times we go to church or how many times we do these good works. Yes, those things are good, but the sole things that saves us is our faith that Jesus took our punishment and died on the cross for our sins and rose from the dead 3 days later. And it's only through the works that Jesus did that gets us to heaven. It's not through our own works. It's through Jesus solely, and that's how we get to heaven. A lot of people don't like that I'm sharing this message, but to me, it's an important message because it's something that I believe in, and, something that I'm going to continue to spread, because as a Christian, this message is important to me. And now, with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump in to this mock draft. So, of course, in the trade down scenario, obviously we're trading down. But the opponent that I picked was the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I don't know if the Cardinals are going to make this trade, but maybe they do. Of course, they have the 4th overall pick, which is their own pick, and this 27th overall pick they got from the Houston Texans when they traded up to number 3 overall to select Will Anderson last season. Now, here's a little something how I think the trade would work out. The Arizona Cardinals would receive the 12th pick, jumping up 15 spots, so they would be picking at 4 and then at pick 12 in this scenario. I don't know where they go. Maybe, of course, I think they're going to probably go Marvin Harrison Jr. if they stick at number 4. But then if this happens, I think maybe they go and try and grab one of the top offensive tackles or one of the top edge rushers in this class. But in exchange for the 12th overall pick, we received the 27th overall pick, the 35th overall pick, and a 2nd round pick in 2025. Now, Cardinals fans, if you're watching this, I'm not saying you will trade up. This is just a scenario, and you guys were the team that I happened to pick. But here's how the trade would work out. The Cardinals are jumping 15 spots back into the early teens, essentially, for this draft, and we are moving almost to the end of the first round. So in addition, we pick up an early second round pick and a second round pick in next year's draft. Now, with that 27th overall pick, I am having us select Bo Nix, quarterback out of Oregon. I know a lot of people are saying, well, you can probably pick up Bo Nix in the second with that 35th overall pick you selected. And yeah, you're probably right. But the quarterback is the most important position in football, heck, even in sports entirely, that you have to go and get your guy. And if Bo Nix is Sean Payton's guy, even if we trade down, I think that Sean Payton is going to select him in the first round. Firstly, you look at a quarterback situation with only Jarrett Stidham and Ben DiNucci on the roster. I think it's quite clear we're going to be drafting a quarterback early in this draft. My preference would be in the first round. And why the first round specifically? Well, you don't want to risk your guy falling and someone else taking him. But also, it's nice in terms of the contract, because if you do select Bo Nix in the first round, you have that fifth-year option where if you need to sign him to a contract extension but things aren't working out, you can pick up that fifth-year option, buy yourself some time, and keep him under contract longer, which is something that I like, that I personally like in drafting a quarterback in the first round, is that fifth-year option. It's just nice to have. And so I have, of course, selecting Bo Nix, and you can go more into details of why I like Bo Nix, like I mentioned with JJ McCarthy in a previous video. But someone who likes to stay on script. When he does have to go off script, he keeps his eyes down the field, looking for his receiver to be open, likes to stay in the pocket, stay on script. But hey, Bo Nix is someone who I do think fits Sean Payton's system. I think McCarthy fits it more, but Bo Nix is someone who I do believe fits Sean Payton's system. Again, you can go into more detail of why I like Bo Nix in a previous video. Sorry for hitting the microphone. But yeah, that video is on my channel if you are curious. Of course, Bo Nix played in 61 collegiate games the past 2 seasons with the Oregon Ducks. And of course, the previous few seasons, I believe it was 3 seasons with the Auburn Tigers. He had 1,286 completions on 1,936 attempts. He's thrown for 15,352 yards, 113 touchdowns to 26 interceptions, and has had a passer rating of 149.6. Of course, had a spectacular year at Oregon. The Ducks had a spectacular season, of course, last season, obviously finishing up as the Pac-12 runner-ups behind the Washington Huskies. But no, Bo Nix played spectacularly, and of course, to me, when he was a freshman in college at Auburn, that's when I was a freshman in college as well. Of course, I didn't go to Auburn, but a lot of people were projecting him as a potential first overall pick. Of course, things didn't really work out that way, but he's played himself back into a first-round conversation in my eyes, and so I have the Broncos grabbing their quarterback of the future here at pick number 27. Now, who do I have as selecting in the second round with the trade? Well, I actually have another trade. We're calling up San Francisco, who I feel like we have a good relationship with. Of course, former player John Lynch, former Broncos safety, is now the GM in San Francisco. Of course, Broncos' best head coach of all time, legendary head coach Mike Shanahan. His son, Kyle Shanahan, is their coach. Of course, Christian McCaffrey's there, son of Broncos legendary receiver Ed McCaffrey. Not that Christian McCaffrey has any control over this, but I do have us trading up into the late first round with that 31st overall pick. The 49ers are moving back 4 spots. They're moving out of the first round to that 35th overall pick, which we picked up from the Cardinals. And we are moving up 4 spots to get our guy in the first round. And, of course, jumping our division rivals, the Chiefs. And then, as well, for moving down 4 spots, I'm giving them a 4th round pick. Initially, this was a 5th round pick, but I figure it's probably more of a 4th round pick to jump up back into the first round. So they're receiving the 35th overall pick and the 121st overall pick for the 31st overall pick. And because we are jumping the Chiefs, I have us grabbing a receiver and Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver out of Texas. Of course, I've seen a couple mocks where he's going to the Chiefs at pick 32, maybe going here at 31 to a team who's traded in here as well. And then there's been a couple mock drafts where he's not available at pick 31. But in this scenario, he was available at pick 31, so I traded back up to grab Adonai Mitchell. jumping the Chiefs of potentially getting their weapon, and we grab Adonai Mitchell. Now, of course, we all saw the combine. Adonai Mitchell, he ran like a 4.35 around that range. I know he ran in the 4.3s. I can't remember the exact millisecond, but he ran in the 4.3s. And so, yeah, Adonai Mitchell maybe doesn't play quite at that 4.3 speed, but he does play super fast. He's one of the better route runners, in my opinion. Maybe has some unnecessary movements in that route running ability, but he's got some of the most sure hands you'll ever find. He does not drop many passes. To me, Adonai Mitchell would be a perfect, I guess, replacement for Jerry Jeudy, because Courtland Sutton is more of that jump ball guy. You need that deep threat route runner guy, and Adonai Mitchell fits that bill. Of course, played at the University of Georgia before transferring to Texas, and in between the University of Georgia and the University of Texas, Adonai Mitchell has played in 35 games with 93 receptions for 1,405 yards, averaging about 15.1 yards per reception, while having 18 touchdowns between the two schools. Yeah, Adonai Mitchell, he was a deadly combination for the Texas Longhorns last season. Of course, Quinn Ewers had quite the weapons with Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, JT Sanders, just to name a few. Those are the main guys in this year's draft. But yeah, Adonai Mitchell is one of those guys for me. Of course, the Denver Longhorns is a meme kind of going around on Twitter right now. Of course, with PJ Locke, Caden Stearns, and then a couple of the guys we signed in Brandon Jones, Malcolm Roach. A lot of Texas guys have been joining the Broncos, and so heck, why not add on to it with Adonai Mitchell? That's not the reason, but I really do like Adonai Mitchell as a potential receiver, and you're giving Bo Nix another target to throw to. I don't think we're going to be super successful next season, but giving him a weapon like Adonai Mitchell will certainly help him produce and certainly help him get more comfortable into the NFL. Don't know if Nix would start right away, so it would be a weapon for Stidham as well. But in the long term, it would be a weapon for Bo Nix in this scenario. So yeah, Adonai Mitchell is the second first-round pick and the second pick for the Denver Broncos in this mock draft scenario. So next up, we are picking all the way in the third round, and with our 76th overall pick, we are selecting Michael Hall, the defensive lineman out of The Ohio State University. Now, Michael Hall is one of the better interior defensive linemen, but the reason why it's kind of going against what I would say would be my ideal pick at defensive line for the Broncos is he is more of the interior pass rusher. He's not an edge rusher, but he does play on the interior and is an effective pass rusher. Maybe not super great in the run defense. He's a decent run defender, but not one of the better run defenders in the class. He mostly specializes in interior pass rush, but I do think his run stopping ability can be developed. He needs to work on tackling a little bit as well, but in terms of a developmental guy, I really like Michael Hall for the Broncos. Of course, we run a 3-4 system, meaning our defensive ends play as the interior and our outside linebackers play as the edge rushers. So to me, Michael Hall would provide instant interior pass rush, which I do think we need some more of, so it is a good thing. So I'm not saying Michael Hall's a bad pick. The main thing that I've been kind of talking about on the channel here is we need to have some interior run defense. Of course, we signed Malcolm Roach. I don't know if he's going to necessarily be a starter. He could very well be, but I have a guy in Michael Hall who I really like as a potential developmental guy who's really great at rushing the passer, needs to work on his tackling a little bit, and needs to work on his run defense, but someone who I do believe in the long term can help the Broncos at the defensive line and the interior defensive lineman position. During his time at Ohio State, he's played in 26 games, recording 45 tackles, 19 of them being solo, 26 of them being assists. He's recorded 10 tackles for loss and 6 sacks. Of course, you got to remember for every position, stats do not really matter. They're important, but they don't tell the whole story, because you look at these stats and you think, well, he's not a very productive player, but you have to turn on the film, you have to turn on the tape, because stats do not tell the whole story of what a player is capable of and how much impact they truly had on their team. And Michael Hall was a big impact player on the Ohio State Buckeyes. But next up, with our first 5th round pick, we don't have the 4th round pick because of the trade up into the late 1st round. I have us selecting Jaheim Bell, tight end out of Florida State. Jaheim Bell is one of my guys. As you very well may know, Jaheim Bell is one of my guys. He is in the top 3 for tight ends. I'm trying to decide if he's my number 2 tight end or my number 3 tight end in this class. Last time we spoke and last time I brought him up in I think it was the 1.0 mock draft, I think I said he was my number 2 tight end. But JT Sanders, yeah, I'm starting to like JT Sanders more. Obviously, I knew about him, but as soon as I've done more tape study, I started to really like JT Sanders, but I'm still really high on Jaheim Bell. He's not that great of a blocker, so he does need to work on his blocking if he wants to be the full complete tight end. But what he excels at is being that vertical threat and being that receiving tight end. He's got great hands, maybe not the best route runner, but he's got some speed on him as a tight end. And to me, we really need that vertical threat tight end. Greg Dulcich, he's been hurt for his first 2 seasons of his NFL career. And so we need someone reliable, and I really like Jaheim Bell. Maybe Greg Dulcich is the guy, and maybe he can start to stay on the field. But you know what they say, the best ability is availability. And so far, Dulcich hasn't been able to do that. So I have us grabbing one of my guys, Jaheim Bell, all the way in the 5th round, which is crazy. I don't know if we'll be able to grab him in the 5th round. I think 4th round might be the latest you can take him. He might even go in the 3rd round. We'll have to see. But right now, he has been available in the 5th round. So I've been taking him, and we get a stud vertical threat receiving tight end in Jaheim Bell. Of course, he transferred from, I think he transferred from South Carolina. And during his time between South Carolina and Florida State, he's played in 43 games with 95 receptions for 1,260 yards, averaging about 13.3 yards per reception and 9 touchdowns in his career. So next up, with our second of 3 5th-round picks, because we had 2 and then we picked up a 3rd with the Jerry Jeudy trade, we are selecting Renardo Green, cornerback out of Florida State, going back to the ACC and going back to Florida State as well, grabbing Renardo Green. Now, the reason why I'm grabbing Renardo Green is we need a cornerback too. Of course, K'Wan Williams, who was our nickel guy, our slot guy, we let him go because of the emergence of Jaquan McMillan. But Fabian Moreau, who was the cornerback too, probably not going to be back. Now, you look at who could be that cornerback too. Well, Riley Moss will be competing, who we traded up for in last year's draft. And then, of course, Damari Mathis will be there as well. But I'm adding another guy to the mix in Renardo Green. Of course, the Broncos could go cornerback way earlier in the draft, but I have us grabbing a cornerback with high upside, someone who I really like in Renardo Green, someone who I actually recently learned about while doing this mock draft. And when I did some more research into him, I'm a big fan of Renardo Green. He is solid in zone coverage and in coverage in general. He's even decent in man and press coverage, but he excels in zone coverage. That's what he excels at. He's not afraid to go up and make tackles. He's going to wrap up and he's going to hit. Not afraid of that. Run defense, pretty solid in run defense as well. Overall, a really solid corner. I think I've seen the name of him before while doing mock drafts, but he was kind of mocked in the 6th, 7th round area. But he has started to rise. Might not even be a 5th round pick by the time the draft gets here. But as of right now, I really like Renardo Green as a potential guy who can compete for that number 2 corner job. Of course, I think that might go to Riley Moss because I think the Broncos want to see what they got in him. But Renardo Green, I think we're definitely going to be taking a corner at some point in this draft. And I'm taking one right now in Renardo Green. During his time In college, he has played in 41 games with 148 tackles, 101 of them being solo tackles, 47 of them being assist tackles, has defended 22 passes and had 1 interception. And if that doesn't tell you anything, of course, like I said, don't always count on stats, but that shows you right there that Renardo Green wasn't thrown at too often. Just he's a kind of a, I won't say lockdown because I'm going to use that for exclusive guys like a Pat Surtain and those top end corners, but in college he wasn't thrown at a whole lot. And so I mean, I guess a decent amount with 22 passes defended, 1 interception, but from what I saw, he wasn't thrown at too much, and he was pretty solid in coverage, but might need to do some more research into Renardo Green because I kind of did like the surface level evaluation, so I need to do some more evaluation on Renardo Green. But for right now, he is our second 5th round pick out of Florida State. Next up, with our third 5th round pick, I was grabbing Michael Barrett, linebacker out of Michigan. I don't think it's I don't think it's been stated enough how much we do need a linebacker. Of course, recently we've signed Cody Barton to a I think it was a 1-year deal. We signed Cody Barton to. Geez. But even still, you got Alex Singleton, who's going to be here for another 2 seasons. You got Jonas Griffith, who I think we tendered, and he's going to be back on a 1-year contract. But then other than that, of course, we got Cody Barton, but Justin Strnad, former 5th round pick out of Wake Forest in 2020. Most likely he's going to be gone. Drew Sanders looks like he is going to be moving to edge rusher. So probably not going to be playing as an inside linebacker anymore. So then who do you got? Well, I think we got to address the position at some point in the draft. I think we can get a solid guy later. And I really like Michael Barrett, kind of the do-it-all linebacker. You know, he can rush the passer if you need him to. He can stop the run. He's pretty decent in coverage as well. Maybe he needs to shore up his tackling a little bit for the linebacking position. Still a decent tackler, but for a linebacker, I do think he needs to improve his tackling just a little bit. But he's a kind of do-it-all guy. You know, he needs to drop back in coverage. He'll cover. If he needs to rush the passer from his inside linebacker spot, I don't think he's moving to outside linebacker because the Broncos, we have a tendency to draft inside linebackers and then move them to outside linebackers, and so we're so thin at the inside linebacker position. But I really like what I saw from Michael Barrett from, of course, the national champion Michigan Wolverines. Can really do it all, and so I'm a big fan of Michael Barrett. In 61 games, he has 208 total tackles, with 116 of them being solo, 92 of them being assist tackles, has 12.5 tackles for loss with 8.5 sacks, as well as he has 2 interceptions. Like I said, can do it all. I just want to reiterate, he can drop back in coverage and play essentially the middle of the field, rush the passer from the interior linebacker spot, and he can also come up and help stop the run. You know, the pass rush, the effectiveness maybe worries me a little bit of moving to edge just because of what happens and what we have traditionally done with the linebackers we drafted. Of course, 2021, Baron Browning, and then 2023 with Drew Sanders. We need to pick a guy at the linebacker position who will stick at inside linebacker and doesn't move to edge, because we really need that at this moment, is a guy who can just stick as an inside linebacker. And right now I have Michael Barrett out of Michigan right there. Moving on to the 6th round, we got 2 6th-round picks, one of our own and one that we picked up in the Jerry Jeudy trade. And the first guy that I have is going to be Charles Turner III, center out of LSU. Of course, we lost Lloyd Cushenberry in free agency to the Tennessee Titans. And so I have us picking up another LSU center who has a 3rd in his last name. Of course, Lloyd Cushenberry was Lloyd Cushenberry III, and then Charles Turner III. So why not have us pick up Charles Turner? Of course, it wasn't quite the prospect that Lloyd Cushenberry was coming out. Of course, Lloyd Cushenberry, when we drafted him, LSU was the national champions. But I do like Charles Turner. I don't necessarily think he'll start right away, but he definitely could compete for the job. Right now, it's most likely going to be Alex Forsyth, our 7th round pick from last season. and Luke Wattenberg, our 5th-round pick from 2022, most likely going to be competing for that starting center job. But if we do go ahead and draft a guy like Charles Turner, I think the competition will be between him and Alex Forsyth, and I think Luke Wattenberg will be a backup guard and a backup center type of guy, just a utility offensive lineman. I think that Charles Turner, I think he is a decent guy, decent center. Funny enough, one of the comps that I'm looking at here on one of the scouting websites is Alex Forsyth, who we drafted last year. That's his highest comparison, the most likely comparison, I guess, according to NFL Draft Buzz, at an 87% similarity, I guess is what it's called. But Charles Turner, he's more of a pass blocking center and needs to work on his run blocking, which, take that for what you will. But this is a developmental guy, someone who I would like to take at center because I like Alex Forsyth and I liked him coming out in last year's draft and I want to see what he can do. I'm a little bit worried about Luke Wattenberg, though, so I want to address the center position after losing Lloyd Cushenberry. And so I have us grabbing Charles Turner out of LSU. He's 6'4", 300 pounds, and he is a 5th-year senior out of LSU. And finally, moving on to our final pick in this mock draft, that is going to be J.J. Weaver, edge rusher out of Kentucky. I know a lot of Broncos fans want to take an edge rusher earlier, and we definitely could take an edge rusher earlier. But in my opinion, if we don't take a guy in the first, second, third round, I'm okay with waiting on edge. And here's why. We are in a rebuilding year, and I think we got some good young guys. Of course, Nick Bonito, Baron Browning, Jonathan Cooper, and now Drew Sanders moving to the edge. And I think they want to get those guys some more experience, especially in a rebuilding year, to see what they have. Of course, it doesn't hurt to add depth like a J.J. Weaver. But to me, unless we're going to draft one of those instant impact guys, I don't know if we should take... I don't know. It's tough because we could very well, if we don't go quarterback in the first round, we could very well take a Jared Verse or a Lautu. But I'm okay with waiting. I'm okay with getting some more depth in a guy like J.J. Weaver, while also having the young guys in Nick Bonito, who I think can have a big impact season next year. Baron Browning, Jonathan Cooper, Drew Sanders, we can see what he can do at edge rusher. I'm okay with waiting and not taking an edge rusher early, but I do have us grabbing J.J. Weaver here with our final pick in the draft. Just a really developmental prospect, He's got some good traits in some of the most important areas in terms of tackling, pass rush. He can defend the well fairly decently. In terms of coverage, don't really want to drop your edge rushers off in coverage, but he is athletic enough, I guess, if you wanted to do that. I wouldn't recommend it. But to me, J.J. Weaver, just a developmental guy again, but most likely the Broncos in next year's draft, within the first 2 picks, whether it's our first-round pick next year or second-round pick next year, probably we go and grab a more polished edge rusher coming out of college, or because we're rebuilding, we're eating a bunch of dead cap, of course, from Russ's contract, but maybe we go and sign a guy in next year's free agency. I don't know. Might make a couple people mad that we're taking an edge rusher so late, but personally, I'm okay with waiting. In terms of what J.J. Weaver can do out of Kentucky, he's played in 48 games, has 165 tackles, 108 of them being solo tackles, 57 of them being assist tackles. He has 32.5 tackles for loss and 17 sacks. And that is going to wrap it up. That is the end of the mock draft. Of course, if you guys want to just have a quick recap, we can go ahead and we can do that. Of course, we are trading down with the Cardinals, picking up a second this year, 35th overall, and a second in next year's draft. And then with the 27th pick, we selected Bo Nix, quarterback out of Oregon. Then we traded up with the 49ers to get the 31st overall pick, giving away our second-round pick that we got from the Cardinals, and a fourth-round pick that is our own pick, I believe. And we traded up and we selected Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver out of Texas, getting a young receiver essentially to replace Jerry Jeudy. And as well as we're jumping the Chiefs, and we're not letting Adonai Mitchell go to the Kansas City Chiefs. Then we grab Michael Hall, a defensive lineman out of Ohio State, someone who can help us rush from the interior as well as develop as an interior run defender and is a solid interior pass rusher. Then we grab Jaheim Bell, a vertical and a receiving threat tight end, something we need with how often Greg Dulcich has been injured during his NFL career. Then we're grabbing Renardo Green, another guy who can go into that corner room and compete. We're grabbing Michael Barrett, an inside linebacker, a position that we desperately need to fill, of course. Got Alex Singleton. We got Cody Barton. We got Jonas Griffith. I might be missing a guy there, but a position that we definitely need some more depth at is inside linebacker, because we keep drafting inside linebackers and moving them to edge rushers. Then we got Charles Turner, the center from LSU, more of a developmental guy, but could potentially compete for the starting job. And then J.J. Weaver, a depth edge rusher who will sit behind some other young guys in Nick Benito, Jonathan Cooper, Baron Browning, Drew Sanders, just to name a few. And that is my mock draft. Now, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section below. Of course, I filmed this at like 2 in the morning, so sorry if my voice sounds weird or if I'm taking these weird pauses. It's because it's late. I like to film late at night, but maybe not the smartest idea because I'm tired and my brain shuts off, and so maybe I don't have the best grammar. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let me know what your thoughts are of this mock draft in the comment section below. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel down below if you haven't done so already. I thank you so much for your support on the channel, and I just ask that you leave a like. Hopefully you watch this all the way through. Subscribe to the channel. Remember that Jesus is king and that Jesus loves you and he wants to have a relationship with you. And as always, my name is Parker, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.